Hey everyone, this is a recording of the Songwriting 101 discussion that was held on the Music Feedback Discord server on November 13th, 2021. Music Feedback is a Discord server, just kind of a community of musicians who are working together every day to get better at mixing, mastering, lyric writing, you name it. Definitely check us out, and hopefully there's something in this chat that will help you grow and get better at your craft.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. The first half will be me, Maki, and Four just going over some of the basics of songwriting, sharing our experience. We're by no means experts, but we do have some years practicing this horrible craft. And the latter half will be dedicated to answering your questions, and we'll invite some of you up here if you want to join the discussion. So, with that, I want to ask the general... Oh, and also, you guys can always write in the event text, which is just above this video, the stage channel. You can post your questions there, and you can also contribute to the conversation. Okay, so with that, what is songwriting? Don't all jump in at once, yeah?
So, songwriting is basically an expression like any other art form. You know, it can be compared to painting as well. And today we're not going to focus on the production or mixing side of it. So we're going to kind of not think about those aspects and just focus on, the storytelling aspect of songwriting and things like lyrics and also identifying the functions of a part of a song, like verses, choruses, bridges, and hopefully trying to give you all the tools to identify those portions of the song in the loops and stuff that you're working on, and see if you can kind of get closer to a finished product.
Yeah, for me, a songwriting is basically the central foundation of any song. If you're able to hum a melody without any words, without any instrumentation, that is good songwriting. Something about that song has made you remember it. And as we'll discuss later, it could be anything from catchiness to an emotional tie, to repetition. All these factors go into songwriting, and it's definitely something you want to be conscious about while you're editing, writing, and even listening to other songs. Do you have anything to add to that, Maki?
Yeah, I would say that songwriting itself is at its simplest form, a way of organizing musical patterns into a recognizable and digestible form, something that everyone can kind of understand. And I think that's also kind of why some of these different sections, like verses and choruses and bridges, kind of exist, because we've been exposed to this way of constructing music for so long that those parts are kind of identifiable in their own right.
And I think that when songwriting is done correctly, it enables people to kind of step into your shoes, feel what you feel, see what you see. So it's there's a lot of detail involved in that kind of allows somebody to really insert themselves into what you're expressing and kind of be a part of it.
I wanted to, before we go into like the storytelling and emotional aspect, I wanted to go back to what Maki said about the traditional structure that everyone is kind of innately familiar with. Are you referring to the AB, like CB, first chorus, bridge chorus?
I mean, that's part of it, but I just mean the like you can tell or you can pick out where between different songs you can pick out and go, that sounds like a verse, and then that sounds like a chorus, and then
Mhm.
that sounds like a hook, and that sounds like a bridge, and like you can identify that despite the music being completely different. You can go from like death metal to like hyper pop and still pick out all of those sections in between those. So that's kind of what I mean.
I think a good thing to tag on to that is like starting with a chorus. Like, how would y'all describe a chorus? Like, what is its function in a song?
A chorus. Okay, so from a songwriting perspective, a chorus is kind of the last sentence of a paragraph. It is the 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 message that you want to get across. Usually it's written pretty simply, like you're not going to have a chorus lyrically, I'm saying, and even melodically, you're not going to have a chorus that's going all over the place, like unless if you're Sia. Usually usually it's on like the fifth of the chord, and it's just really open, and thematically it is telling you what the entire song is about.
And musically, like, I think you could also describe the chorus musically as well as kind of, the peak of the song or the central
Mm-hmm.
portion of the song. So it can be beneficial to, if you're working on a piece of music and you kind of have a loop going, if it's full of instrumentation and kind of the biggest portion of the song, then that might, make it your chorus part. And then you can kind of work from there to strip things back and create more of a verse. Because I think that when the verse finishes up and you get into the chorus, it should kind of like musically somehow.
I
Yeah, I
think,
think that's a.
yeah, sorry,
Oh,
go Maki.
I think that's a pretty common. It's definitely a pretty common factor in choruses. I think a lot of them, most of the time, you can feel there's like a upward shift in energy when the chorus hits, and it kind of ties the outside part of the story, the verses and the pre-choruses, into this whole central idea of the song, or at least in theory.
And I
Um,
think like a bridge, for example, would kind of be the opposite of that. Like a bridge may be more of a lower energy point musically in the song. And I think that what that enables you to do is kind of use contrast to have an effect. So if you come out of the bridge back into the final chorus, then you have this contrast of kind of the lower, more calmer part of the song kind of exploding back into the central idea of the song for the final time.
Well, bridges are very interesting because you, in general, all choruses have a higher energy than the verses. Like, I can't think of a song that doesn't have a slightly more energetic chorus than a verse, even if it's like the saddest song you've ever listened to. And in those cases, sometimes the bridge will be even more energetic than the chorus to create that contrast. Or it will break down entirely and then build its way back up, like Four was saying. I think, though, the most important thing is realizing the contrast you have in between the two choruses. That's kind of what makes the bridge work. You don't really want to focus it on the bridge by itself, whereas a verse you kind of can. Um,
I think you
but
kind of hit a good point there as far as contrast can be, going from calm to more excitement, or it can also be vice versa. And there's a time and a place to do both, but I think, the starting point is really being aware of contrast and using it, even if you go from, low energy to high energy or high energy to low energy. Contrast is a big part of a song that kind of creates a movement. You don't want something that remains at the same energy for 3 minutes. Like a song, I think
yeah,
is kind of a request for someone's attention. So when you make a 3.5 minute long piece of music, what you're doing is kind of asking the listener to pay attention to your work for 3.5 minutes. And so we're going to go over some of the techniques that you can do to, maintain attention and keep movement going. Keep it exciting, because you don't want this like monotonous thing that doesn't move in energy. That's going to lose people's attention.
Yeah, I'd like to backtrack just a second to the bridge. I would say that a bridge is kind of anything that pulls away from the central idea. It almost I like to think like a bridge is almost like a reset button on the story that you're telling. It changes the person's focus so that when that next section, chorus or pre-chorus or whatever it is, comes in, it has even more of an effect.
Yeah, I think often it is almost like another song tucked in your song.
Yeah.
Like I've written some bridges, and it really feels like I could take that bridge idea and morph it into another song, because often you'll change keys for bridges, or it'll have a brand new part that's not reoccurring throughout the song. And I think that's a big attention grabber. It's a big chance to kind of reset that attention that your listener is paying towards your tune.
I was just thinking about Aurora just did this song where I think she was heavily influenced by ABBA. I think it's Chiquitita, that the ending just kind of like goes off, but she used it as a bridge to connect to her final chorus. And you're just saying that it could be used for another song, and she like quite literally just kind of copied and pasted another song into the bridge, and it worked really well. But yeah, I think and then lyrically, a bridge, like you said, I think you kind of need to like take a completely different perspective for the bridge in terms of lyrics. It's kind of like calling bullshit on yourself a lot, I feel. Like the
Almost a
verses,
devil's advocate or
yeah,
something.
yeah, to get that contrast even more. It's like the whole song can be about a breakup, but then the bridge is like, screw you, I'm gonna move on to another person. You kind of need that realization moment in the bridge, I think.
I think that's an interesting point too to kind of touch on right there. Is that if you guys haven't quite noticed yet, there's kind of this already, even though we've really just started talking. There's already this recurring theme of building and releasing tension throughout the song, and like how to create an ebb and flow of up and down energy and emotion. And I think that's kind of, at least for me, when I'm writing a song, I'm kind of thinking, I kind of think it's like a roller coaster, or even just like I imagine like a line, and trying to make the line literally just go up and down, and I imagine that's the ebb and flow of the song. I think that's a good visual to
Yeah, you kind of see the same thing in
utilize.
movies as well, like the storyline of a
Yeah.
movie. So I
And
think,
yeah,
sorry.
sorry. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, focusing on how to do that lyrically and musically, and kind of separating those two things. I think it needs to happen with both aspects of the song.
I think I was just thinking now that I think it's interesting that first we started with the chorus discussing it, and then we moved to the bridge, and I would like to get to the verse, but I found it interesting that this is kind of how a song should be written in this order. I think you need, though you can have verse, you can definitely start wherever you want, but I think starting with a chorus is probably the most reliable.
You can start wherever you want, but I would advise trying both ways if you haven't yet. I would definitely, try starting with, creating the music that is going to be intended to be the chorus. And I think lyrically, there's a huge benefit to starting with the central idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. It makes everything else easier to build around.
Well, there's so many tools that you can use to explore how to build on that. So, say you have your central concept for the chorus. There's ways that you could decide on a perception or perspective. I'm sorry, for the verse, for maybe the first verse, and then change that perspective for another verse. So you can kind of look at this central idea through, different characters.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
let's talk about verses. I think everyone has a different way of writing them, and I think that's like the best part of the verses and what can really make a chorus pop out. If you guys want to, I know that I have a very exact way of writing them, so if you guys want to go through your methodologies, um, go ahead and share them for like verse 1 versus verse 2.
Mm.
Uh-huh. Come on, analyze your songwriting, Maki.
I'm thinking.
Okay. Do you want me to go first? I can go. Okay. So first verse I use to introduce the setting and the problem. Usually it's low energy, and then I move to the chorus, which gives a little more energy, and then slightly less energy for the second verse, where I reflect on the first verse of what I've written, and I kind of use it to expand the plot a little more that I brought up in the first verse, but with some more self-reflection. So it's a little more introspective, but with slightly more energy, and then that leads me into an even bigger chorus. That is my formula.
I like that. That's a good
Yeah,
that's a good
that's
list of.
interesting because maybe in the first verse you kind of express the problem and the conflict, and in the second verse you're kind of doing what I was referring to by shifting your perspective. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe you're angrier about the problem in the first verse, and then when you get into the second verse and it's more of an introspection, that might be the time to admit you were wrong, or that you don't exactly want to be angry about the situation. It's just you're more hurt about the situation or something. It kind of you get into the layers of how it affects you.
Yeah,
And I think
before
the
the
sincerity
sorry.
comes from that too.
What does?
Sincerity comes from that too. Like being able to go into a more introspective expression of that first idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's like the art part of it, the personal art part of it is getting something out of it and realizing, what the actual song is about. Um, I would like to bring up a topic here that I have seen in the server at points, is that a lot of people use their verses just to like pitter patter around their problem. Like it's very vague. It's the story isn't really moving. It's around a central problem, and it's in one focus point, and they're not trying to understand the problem. They're just describing it. And I think even like instrumentally, you can have a kind of distant melody, or you can just kind of have an upfront one. And I think you need to just be very upfront in your songs. You can't be afraid of it. That's that space is for you to say what you want to, and yeah, you shouldn't be afraid of it.
You touched on an interesting thing about like being vague. I think a good example for that is like if I went over to Maki's house for dinner and he made dinner and I was just like, "Thanks, Maki, dinner was good." That doesn't seem as sincere as if I maybe reference some of the dishes he made and why they were good. So that detail, I think sincerity is kind of tied to the detail. So, like writing
What do you mean
lyrics.
you don't like my rigatoni?
So, like writing lyrics, I think if you do want to be sincere, you kind of have to add details to things. And I think a cool technique I kind of found out about is like if you think about nouns in your songs, say you've written some lyrics, go through and find the nouns because nouns often get lonely. I don't know if y'all know this about nouns. They're a person, place, or thing. But nouns like friends, like anybody else. And who makes a good friend for a noun? A descriptive adjective.
Oh my
So
god.
try like no, I'm serious though. If you find in your lyrics that you have a noun and it's by itself, experiment with, tagging an adjective to that noun and seeing if you can kind of paint more of a vivid picture that way.
And I think don't be afraid to like put an absurd adjective with it. Like people love unfamiliar imagery kind of, and they'll resonate with it in the right context. I mean, you can have fun with language in your songs. It makes it interesting, and yeah, so get at the source. I mean, at the source is your best friend for
At the
writing in
source,
general.
and also there's a website called Rhyme Zone. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
Rhyme Zone is great.
Oh my god.
It's worth
Rhizome
checking out, and
is
it'll
gold.
offer rhyming words and also things like near rhymes, which are kind of fun to mess with. Maybe the
I
word
really
doesn't
like it.
exactly rhyme, but it's close enough to where it'll fit.
I really like using it too because not only does it allow you to find word, rhyming or near rhyming words, but it also because there are sometimes words that you didn't think about maybe using it kind of influences potential, changes in the story of the song. You can start to consider new concepts. In addition to that, usually when I'm writing lyrics, I have Rhyme Zone and Thesaurus open at the same time, and I'm like jumping back and forth between the two.
Yeah,
Just
I
like
mean, yeah.
any tool you have.
And it keeps you from like falling into cliches, you know? You don't want to. Love is such an easy word to sing. That's why it's in so many songs. But there are so many other ways to say it. So, use a metaphor to say something indirectly. Use a totally new word. Have fun with it. I wanted to bring up how to create contrast with melody alone, as not all of our members are lyricists. So for like a verse versus a verse for an instrumental song, do you guys have any tips or tricks for creating contrast and interest in between the sections?
Definitely. And there's a lot of them. But I think like the best way to think about it is really breaking down the basics and like just kind of what we were talking about before. That low and high energy, more notes versus less notes, louder notes versus softer notes.
Well, a big energy
Uh,
shifter is also just like bass. If you think
yeah,
about a lot of, some
adding,
songs, I
taking
guess,
away.
come in immediately with bass, but I think deciding when certain elements come in can kind of really, help guide the movement. And if you pull bass away and it's been there, it's going to sound so stripped down and calm. So that's more of that contrast that we were referring to, just kind of in a musical context.
Yeah, and like Maki was saying, in terms of creating that interest, definitely simplest way is just add more notes. Like literally more notes just equals more interest, and that is one of the easiest hacks. And also just shifting it up an octave or even layering an octave above can increase energy so much. It is insane. And that's true for vocals as well. Like harmony is just take a song from 0 to 100.
Oh yeah, and
Oh, and Joe brought up key changes, yes.
yes, definitely key changes. What I was gonna say too is like knowing knowing when to layer in new stuff, doing that gradually throughout the sections as well is another way to build dynamic contrast and influence the journey. I guess you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
I
people
think
tend to start with a loop, and I think that's like a good time to start doing what you're talking about. You know, if you have all the elements together in this like 16 bar loop, you can kind of start to play with removing elements and seeing, how it stands on its own with only, two or three of the instruments that are playing in your whole loop, and that kind of helps break you out of that loop that everyone is always stuck in, and just kind of gives you a chance to start identifying how you can play with moving the energy and kind of find your verses and find your chorus point.
Right, sorry, I'm
another
just
thing
reading
that
stuff. Wait, hold on. Let me just. I feel like it naturally comes to me, so it's easy for me to say. Don't try too hard. I feel like the best thing to do is just write anything. Yeah. I mean, when a song is working, it literally writes itself. If you've ever gotten to experience that magic, you can't really put it into words. And those songs often go on to being, incredible. Like some of my favorite artists wrote their best songs in 30 minutes or less. And
Yep,
that's
I've
just
seen it
the
happen one time.
songwriting skill. Huh? For you?
No, not for me. For a friend I produced.
Oh.
I came over.
If you play an instrument, it kind of, you were talking about like the bare bones aspect of a song earlier, Jen, and
Mm,
if you play an instrument, you can kind of write something and think of that as a demo version, because I think a good song could be written on just like an acoustic guitar with a vocal.
yeah,
And, that could
that's
be your
ideally
demo
what you want.
version that later you get into production and kind of diversifying the instrumentation or putting it in the context of like, a full band or something.
Well, say you listen to like all you're familiar with is the highly produced end product, and then you go to listen to an acoustic version of it. You can hear that there's something special there that oftentimes it sounds better than the highly produced end product. And
Yeah, because
that's the, yeah.
whatever that raw essence that makes it like a hit song or a really good song is kind of on display at that point. All of the glitter and all the spice is kind of taken away, so you can really see a good song for what it is.
I think that's why like an acoustic or stripped down performance of something that you were familiar with the album version can be so powerful. Because I mean, a lot of the songs can stand on their own in like a bare bones fashion, and that contrast I think is what really sucks people in. Because if they hear the super produced version and then they hear like a raw performance of it, sometimes people like that raw version even more.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, what you're hearing at that point is the song in context of how the artist is presenting it. Um, but I mean, even if you hear other artists cover that song, um, and it's still a good song, like you can, if another artist covers it, you can say, "Hey, that person did justice to it." I think that is how you know if you have a good song or not, is if it can be taken out of context and twisted, and it still gets the original meaning across.
Definitely. There's like a solid idea under everything that is strong enough to withstand like being played, by someone else or on different instruments or and still express that concept. So
Do you guys have any examples of songs like that? I mean, I know Bob Dylan is revered as a master songwriter. Who else?
one decent example I have. I don't know if y'all will be familiar with both the artists, but uh, before Death Cab for Cutie, there was a band called the Postal Service, and they did a song called "Such Great Heights." Yeah, and it's like a blippity
Oh
bleepity,
my
like it
god.
was made on like a Roland 303, and it was covered by an artist named Iron and Wine.
Yeah.
And when Ben
Yeah.
Gibbard, who wrote the song, heard him do the acoustic version of that, he was like, "That's like your song now." Like he thought that he almost did it more justice than he was able to originally. So I think that's a good example of like how
You
that
know
central
what?
idea of the tune can stand on
I
its
love that
own.
song
I
personally.
I lived with both of the versions of that song for such a long time, and honestly, I do see them as separate songs. Like they just have completely different emotions. The Iron
Which to
and
me
Wine
means
one,
that central concept of that song was explained so well. It was articulated so well by both artists, you know?
yeah. The Iron and Wine one
So
drags on a
here's a
bit,
good
but he's
question.
forgiven.
Here's a
What?
here's a good question based on that topic. So in those situations where a song translates between two artists, even being a heavily modified version, what are the internal factors of that song that makes that happen, do you guys think?
Well,
Well,
What
I'm
makes a great song a great song?
I
oh,
think
I would say imagery. I would say like
oh.
if it feels, I kind of compare songs to a painting sometimes. So like a not so great song might be like stick figures. It doesn't have a whole lot of texture or color or lighting in it, and like a good song is going to be a more detailed expression of that. Like, you could look at it just in, lyrics and read a line that you
See
wrote
it.
and, does it describe smells or you know, tastes or textures or, there's all sorts
I I want
you
to
can get
ask you
into to kind
though.
of yeah.
I want to ask you um how does melody play into that for you though? Are they because I mean, you can have great lyrics and have a horrible melody and it's still great writing, but the songwriting isn't necessarily the best, you know?
Melodies is can be a tricky one because it definitely varies from genre to genre. But I feel like what I'm gonna say is kind of opinionated, I guess. But I feel like a good melody is something that is easily digested and simple. Something that is quickly learned and remembered. Um, I feel that in the past, because I've done a good amount of writing across a whole bunch of different projects, a bunch of different bands, including my own attempts of doing electronic music, and
Oh
I
no.
find that I always get the best responses from simplifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got to have a rhythmic property to it that agrees with the rhythm portion. Because like when I think melody, I kind of think of like the rhythm chords happening and then the melody on top. And it's not like a solo, because a solo can be more wandering. Like a melody is more like often like a reoccurring thing, like a motif in a song. So,
Yeah, it can
you know,
be, and can include motifs for sure. I agree with that.
so
I
like an example, a cheesy example, I guess, for some people, um, that Billie Eilish song that came out recently that I guess a lot of people were hating on. It's Your Power. In the intro to that, there's like an acoustic guitar lead part that actually kind of follows the chorus vocal melody. It almost hints at it and in some ways kind of copies it. And I think that's kind of like ear candy in a way because it
That's a
almost
great
functions
example of a
it almost
motif.
functions as a motif because you introduce this melody and now another aspect, the vocal, is going to take over that melody and
That
use it on
Yeah,
another instrument,
intros, I
essentially.
mean, we could probably have a whole discussion on intros themselves because there are so many like psychological ways to introduce a song in full without even more than like 30 seconds. It's kind of crazy how important intros are to know the rest of the song. And is the reason why most people can skip a song after, 10 seconds.
It's interesting though because on that topic, one thing that I've read and been thinking about recently within the past few years is one thing that I had heard some artists were doing, um, just for the sake of being picked up on playlists, which is a whole different thing, was putting the chorus at the beginning of their songs and
Mm-hmm.
bypassing the intro just to get that central hooky idea in the listener's ear immediately. And so kind of tailor making songs for Spotify.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
I mean,
kind of
I
an
wouldn't,
interesting way
I
to go
wouldn't put
about
that
it.
entirely on Spotify because I know a lot of bands, like Cold War Kids, notably does a lot of stripped down choruses at the beginning of their songs. And I mean, they've been making music since before like playlists were so important. It's just like a really good way to introduce your audience to the song and to kind of get them anticipating for when it will come back in.
It's got a catchy factor too, because when you come back in, you're going to come in with more energy, and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
gets back to that contrast and that movement that I'm talking about. So, and Maki mentioned it with the roller coaster comparison. So starting off with a stripped down chorus gives you many different opportunities to move, from there.
To
Yeah.
build.
No, I mean the possibilities are endless, and then you can just have songs that are kind of one tone with like a refrain. I know a lot of folk does that, but yeah,
So I think a good technique would be, like we said, identifying, what the function of a verse is, what the function of a chorus is, and then listening and analyzing the music that you enjoy and finding different progressions that you can toy with. So if you feel like you're struggling with songwriting and struggling to complete a song, then I would challenge you to name, two or three popular progressions and become familiar with that. I'm sure you've heard people, mention the like A B C B thing. So, being conscious of those options and then applying it to your work, I could see being beneficial.
you mean just like copying another song's arrangement?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have in the past, I'll hear a song on the radio and I'll just kind of borrow the rhythmic structure a little bit and then build new chords on top of it and a whole new song out of it. But
And
essentially,
that's
like,
that.
that's that.
That it
Don't
doesn't
tell
need to
anybody.
be any more complicated than that, honestly. We just kind of do internally.
And some people may look at that like cheating, but like at the same time,
They're never gonna know.
Well, I mean, you kind of can't avoid it, is what I would say. I would say try to
yeah,
write
that's
a
it too.
progression that hasn't been done. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Is that there's so much music that's been made. I know there's a number out there that's uh it's like so ridiculous.
I think they
Uh,
raised the oh my god, the daily Spotify upload estimation from like 40 to 60,000 songs a day.
yeah,
It's
so
just obscene.
as of 2011, there's 79 million songs on record.
And
That's not
I want to listen to them all. That is my life goal.
So the point is there though, like don't feel like that's cheating in a way to copy progressions because you're going to apply it to your own work. I'm not saying copy chord progressions or, copy any musical aspect of the song, just the order in which the song goes through its sections.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's also, there's another thing that you can kind of pick up on listening to other music is the formula that creates the feel of that song. There's like usually a definable, identifiable structure that that you can use to give a song a certain emotion. Shit, hold on. I must mute for a second.
Oh. All right.
You know,
Well,
emotion's a good thing to touch on too. Like I think that say you have a concept for your song, you want to write about that. I would focus on the emotions that concept makes you feel because I think the idea is kind of to get your listeners to feel the emotion that you're feeling and also relate to it as well. So, you
I
really want to
think
tap into, stating, expressing how you feel about that. You can't just like say stuff and not put the emotion into it because people are going to tell right away.
I
So you can't
think
be
that's
afraid to do that.
I think that's a little hard because when you're writing, you're in like such a vacuum that at least for me personally, I'm not thinking about how my emotions are being expressed, but I'm just thinking about how I'm expressing them. And hopefully it will come across. And I mean, if you write with emotion of how your emotions will come off, then I think that's pretty interesting because that's not how I do it at all. But it's not wrong. I did want to move on to some questions you guys might have. I also wanted to invite you up if you would like to talk. Wait, let me just read what Joe wrote here. Yeah,
Well,
emotion is something I have trouble with because you don't really feel the same way all the time. So how do you keep the feeling the same and as prominent throughout the whole process?
I think that's an interesting question because I don't think you
Uh-huh.
have to keep the feeling the same, like we were referring to. Like you know, maybe in one verse, your feeling towards the subject of your song is one way, and then you can use those other verses to, express different feelings that you may also have about the same subject.
maybe later on in the song you have resolved the problem and you can kind of build that emotion into it. In the beginning, you're presenting the problem, and
Or you could shift
yeah,
perceptions into another character and it could be their emotion towards the subject.
And
yeah.
also when you go to present the song, you can present it in a very like tongue-in-cheek way. Like Lord's recent album is all satirical. Um, and how she presents it, it's a little cliched so that you're supposed to get that satire. So, I mean, if you completely change perspective on your lyrics, you can kind of make fun of it, like you can call yourself stupid. Um, and still the song kind of is that realize while it might have been like woe is me at the beginning, a few months later it can be like you were so stupid. And I think that's another important thing to consider when you're playing live, because often you'll write a song with one intention and then it changes over the year that you're touring. And people quite literally change the how they play it live for that intention, that new
Well, it really
intention.
touches into that storyline as well, and you can use something like that to resolve in a different place. So if you had a song that's like "Woe is me," you might not want to do 3.5 minutes of "Woe is me" and then it ends on "Woe is me." That's not much of a story. Imagine an action film where like the same thing, happened the whole time. There's no resolve. I think
It's
resolving the
just a giant
idea.
chase scene.
Yeah, it's just one
It's just an
2 hour
hour and
long
a half
chase scene.
chase
Yeah.
scene that ends on the chase scene.
So yeah, there's resolve musically with chords, and there's tension, and then there's also, tension and resolve with lyrical context, and also just instrumentation wise, like energy wise. There's
Yep, taking instruments out, putting instruments back in. Those are all part of that.
So you want all
Those
three of those
toolbox for
aspects. You want all three of those
yeah.
aspects doing that. You want it musically moving up and down, with tension and resolve. You want the whole song to express an idea, explore an idea from different perspectives, and then eventually resolve. And
Hang
then,
on.
Yeah, a lot of times.
lyrically as well.
A lot of times when I find myself struggling with how to move forward from a specific spot, I literally think about that. Just like, okay, is this part kind of a low energy, or am I building tension here? How can I make this part, contrast from the next one? How can I build that roller coaster ride? How can I build
Well,
that story?
yeah, you mentioned something perfect there, because like a lot of times when people are stuck, that's probably what you should start to think about is, how do I contrast what I do have? How do I create movement throughout this? So if you're stuck at a certain point, think about, what is the opposite of this energy level and how could you get there? Or, you just kind of think about how to keep things moving and not seeming monotonous.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on Joe's question again. How you're actually asking like how to preserve a memory, kind of, and I don't think there really is a way. Like a song is a snapshot of your life, but unless if you're writing the song within the moment, it's always going to be changing in meaning. So I think, as For and Maki have been saying, just kind of know the general landscape that you want it to fill, and how energetic you can make it to like preserve the memory you have as much as you can, but just be prepared that it will change and take on new forms as it goes.
And I think another thing to keep in mind is yes, you're doing all that, and you're expressing and exploring all that, but I think you also, music is a 50-50 relationship between the musician and the listener. And so like I often hear like people that have no musical experience say like, "Oh, well, I can't really comment on that. I don't play any instruments or anything like that." And I would argue that the listener is just as qualified as we are, because without them, this whole process doesn't really exist. So, when you're
Absolutely.
doing that, I would say be conscious throughout all these aspects of the tune that you're writing. Be conscious about leaving things open-ended enough to where people can
Mm-hmm.
insert themselves into it. And it kind of goes back into, giving them an opening to step into your shoes, because that's what good expression to me does. Like I feel like, I can relate a song to things that I've felt and experienced, and it's just something you should probably be conscious of. How is this going to come across to the listener? And, sometimes maybe being too detailed might, combat that a little bit, and might not leave room for, if you specifically are like naming your address and, like just talking too much about your
Oh,
life in a way that other people can't find a way in,
but
you gotta
also,
respect that relationship between the
also,
listener and creator.
I was just watching an interview on this, that like the specificities of, like, say you mention an exact cafe that you go to, and a lot of artists, like, they go, they turn it over and they're like, is this too specific? Is it too much me? But I mean, 90% of the time, people are gonna sympathize with whatever you're saying, no matter if
Sure,
they know the
I'm not
restaurant or
saying
not.
don't do it, but you hit the nail on the head there. You said that they assess it. So a big thing for me is like you can often do anything you want musically and creatively, but I think being conscious of what that choice does is
Yeah,
really going to enable you as an artist to see, when you do something and be conscious of the effect that it has, enables you to make creative decisions that are educated.
yeah, no, I fully agree. And I mean, one of them, it was like, I think the artist said that like they chose to keep it in because they really wanted to show what their life was like in the moment. So it was an intentional decision to keep it in or to not, because of their
Yeah,
audience.
and I feel that even if it is a specific thing, I think that there are, you know, you can still kind of parallel it to your own experience. Just
Yeah, you
like,
get to like romanticize it a little bit, you know?
yeah, and then there are those few people that actually have been to whatever place or done the exact specific thing. You
Sure,
know?
and so that's my point. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be aware that in some
Yeah,
situations you might lose something with that
Mm-hmm.
specific
Yeah.
aspect. So really, what's going to enable you to have the tools to be better is just to step back and make a creative decision and entertain whether or not that's too specific and you think it kind of pushes people out from being able to relate to it, or making an educated decision that, yeah, this is specific, but I can still see how other people would be able to insert themselves.
Yeah, I think that's all part of the editing process. Um, if you have an editing process. But should we let Seth up? Should we
Yeah,
yeah.
let
yeah,
Let's
I think that there's a few people that want to chime in, and it would be a good time.
all right, I'm gonna invite you up. I think you just need to hit OK or something. I don't know. I
oh,
don't use the internet.
there's the hand. There it is.
Oh, where?
Turn on. Nope,
Did I
he's
do
here.
it?
Hello.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I feel like you're calling. Hi, you've reached 97.5.
Or how about this? Denver's #1 for new country, 98 what 98 okay, I'm gonna just stop.
It's primetime
Valiant,
radio.
valiant attempt. All right, let's hear about your songwriting process, sir.
So for me, all of my songs are always based off of personal experience. Like
Hmm.
it's always like 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 it can stem from a thought, it could stem from an emotion, it could stem from like an interest. I feel like a prime example of like one song I've been working on forever is a song called Firewood. And it's like a metaphor and stuff like that, and you could like get creative with metaphors, but like you could just relate. Like for example, it's Firewood is a anti love song, kinda. It's like I can't feel love, so it's like a spin off of like a normal love song, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I like how you instantly kind of went for metaphors, because I think that, say you're writing an anti-love song like that and you're using metaphors. Metaphors are like perfect for people to insert themselves into because it's not specific and they can kind of take their own meaning from that as well. So I think it's a broader way of saying a specific idea.
Yeah, and the here's how I came up with like the title Firewood and making it seem like I can't feel love. Okay, so basically there's so many like songs and like metaphors out there where it's just like, oh, you set me on fire, when you touch me I ignite, like my heart is like burning kind of thing, like, you know.
Yeah, that's actually a comparison made in many different languages, you know?
And like, so what I did is, because I didn't feel love for like a long time, it just felt like my heart was frozen. And so I took like the idea of just like, you know, people, what do people do with firewood? They burn it.
Okay. That's very cool. I like that.
And I also like that you said your heart was frozen, because that's kind of the opposite terminology that, you know, like you were saying, a flame or fire is often used to represent love. So going with that kind of opposite metaphor, you know, not even in the songwriting, but approaching the central idea using a metaphor almost, you know, it's
that's
Yeah.
very, very cool.
But
Very
like,
good technique.
oh, but yeah, just like the whole idea is like, people will come and go and they'll try to melt my heart. They themselves are like the firewood, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
they have
great use
they
of
have
metaphor.
to they have to like melt themselves. They have to reveal themselves in order to try to reveal me. And most of the time it doesn't work. My heart stays frozen, which is why it's like, yeah.
So this is really cool that you bring that up, because you just stated the central idea outside of these metaphors, and now exploring it through these metaphors, you know, your central idea was that you couldn't feel love. Okay, well, we could say it like that, and that could be kind of like, great, you know, there's the idea, you can't feel love, cool. But when you take it into this metaphorical realm, you're really opening it up for other people to kind of take some of their own meaning from it while still expressing the thing that
I
you were trying to
wanna
express.
I wanna add on to that though, is that so say you have a song that is composed almost entirely of metaphors. I think interjecting some I statements like such as I couldn't find love, while the rest of everything else is kind of wrapped up in this nice imagery, can be super profound. And it's actually like one of my favorite tactics to use while writing is to
What you
jump back
did
to reality.
is a contrast. So if you just
Exactly.
like,
I was
if you
just about to
file
say
that under
that.
contrast, then now you're starting to see how we can use these tools to, you know, kind of compound on these ideas. Like, so Seth had the central idea, then he's getting metaphorical with it. Well, now through the movement of the song, you can think, okay, if I've done so much with metaphors, let's try not using metaphors. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
that
super
contrast that
effective.
you're referring to that really has that roller
It's-
coaster effect. And
Yep. Brings that part to life, makes it stand out in conjunction with the rest of the song.
so oftentimes you
that's
can
the
look to
beautiful thing.
opposites. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about songwriting is it's just this continuous ebb and flow, and there's so much you can do to create that tension.
I want to also say like how I got this metaphor idea. Basically, I just thought outside the box, because, you know, since like, you know, there's so many songs where it's just like my heart is on fire kind of thing. You melt my heart. I just like took something like, what is heat related to? Like, where do you get heat from? Where are sources of heat? I'm like, well, you like burn firewood to get heat. So it's like you have to experiment with like the words that are used, and just you have to think outside the box.
Yeah, you need to let your mind wander and make a story. You don't want to write something that's already been written before.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's a super good way to come up with something original, is to think of something that is cliche and again play devil's advocate and see it from the other side, because those sides like nearly haven't been as written as much.
Well, and a big thing I want to touch on that he's talking about is that he had the central idea before he started to explore metaphors. So that's a tool to add to your toolkit. Is, you know, write the central idea down. It doesn't have to rhyme or anything. It's just the concept, and then explore ways to express that with
Yeah,
metaphors.
actually,
And
yeah, sorry, continue.
well, he got into like he was exploring the concept with metaphors, and he started off with the cliche metaphorical expressions of that concept, and then he got out of the box to try and use those cliches and kind of relate to them, but do them differently.
Um, and I think to add on to that, I think a great way to kind of add on to that is to make reference to literature, different medias of art. You know, so many people pull from the Bible and myths, and it's because those are universal experiences, but you can contextualize them to like make your own story out of them. I think they make really great
So
references.
so oftentimes I've found myself do that where I come up with an idea and then come up for, a metaphor for it, and then it does seem cliche, and I think that that shouldn't shut your whole brain off and go, "Oh, this isn't good. I'm just going to stop playing with it." You kind of have to just keep exploring how you can do it differently.
Hmm.
So I think, that's an interesting way to look at it and kind of break out of the box if you feel like the idea that you came up with, wasn't good enough or was, too similar to everything else that has been done. Doesn't mean that it's a bad idea or that you should, scrap it. It just means that you should, try to practice some of what he's talking about and kind of look at it a different way. And, there's always a way out for that, I think. That's where the creativity comes in. So just because you have an idea and it feels stuck like that, then, you can start to think of stuff like this to get away from being boxed in by that typical way of expressing it.
I also just want to describe another one of my songs that I've written just because I don't want to like only give the idea like that I only write metaphors and like you should only write metaphors because
Hmm.
that's not the case. Let's see. Would would it be okay if I talked about eating disorders?
Yeah, I mean, just everyone here, just be aware that we will be going into more sensitive topics. If you're not comfortable, you can leave and or mute, and then this will be available later if you want to finish or if you want to come back into the stage. Uh, so we'll just
And I'll let the chat know when we move on.
yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Seth.
Okay. So so one of my songs is called Baggy Clothes, and it's basically just like a song about like how like these my depression demons are always just like um they're making me think things that I don't want, like don't actually want. So,
Sure,
for
almost like an
example,
invasive thought or something.
yeah, it's an invasive thought. One of these thoughts that I've had since I've been surrounded by a couple people who've had eating disorders and how like seeing how low they are, like my brain just like thinks like, you could like what if you were like that kind of thing. Like
Yeah. So
so that's the whole idea of the song is like what if I were like that, but I also bring in some of my own personal experiences.
yeah, that's a great way to do it, and even just changing writing perspective from first, second, third perspective, it definitely opens up a new style of writing. And being able to see someone suffering and understand their emotions and then relate it back to yourself, that kind of is like the ideal artist in some way, that you're kind of able to relay a universal emotion and also connect to it. So that's a great way to write songs.
Yeah, and the whole baggy clothes idea came from just me expanding on the intrusive thought. It's just like, okay, if I were like this, how would it like affect my life? Like, and like in my lyrics, it's like I describe like I'd hide myself with baggy clothes and I wouldn't let anyone get too close. Because I don't like I would think like in this life I would just be like so secretive, and I mentioned in the pre-chorus of the song, like I would have like if I had like any relationship with anybody, I would have to like hide myself from them, and if I do like reveal myself to them, then they're going to like be really concerned, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah.
For sure, and I think that also that first, second, and third person kind of thing, or even singing through a character that may be based on a friend going through that experience, what it allows you to do is go back to the contrast that we were talking about and the movement of a song, and also the resolve, and you could actually sing from your perspective and maybe talk about how you don't see them that way and how most of that is in their head, and you see them as a beautiful person, you know. So I think that's kind of the storytelling aspect that we're referring to, is how you can touch on an idea and tap into things through empathy, and then also give them some sort of resolve. You know, you can. It's a dark topic where that people suffer from, and I think that you can contrast that with kind of a first person acceptance and an expression of love for that person.
And also, I don't want to go into production, but with heavy topics such as that, you can do so much with a good upbeat instrumentation. Yeah.
That's a good point. A happy sounding song about a sad sounding topic. Like a lot of this goes right back into contradiction. Like contradiction and like
I love that shit. That's actually
Yeah, everyone loves that shit.
It's a really popular songwriting technique.
We have a song coming out in the next few months that I wrote most of the lyrics for, and they're all about the world being completely insane anymore. But the whole song's like a song the whole time. It's like all super majory key and just like friendly, and the whole song's like everyone's crazy. But but that really drives home
a cool aspect of that.
The central subject.
It adds some mystery too. I'm sure all of you have experienced a song that you love and you don't even know the words to it, you know? And there's kind of a mystery and an uncovering aspect to like, oh wait, they're singing about this, and it was so upbeat that it kind of got past you, and it can have an interesting effect, like an interesting overall attitude towards the subject. So just you can write a sad musical song about a sad lyrical topic, and it's been done a million times, or you can contrast these things, and there's not really a right way to do it. Like I said, it's just being aware of the options available and making your own educated, creative decisions.
Building your toolkit.
I also want to say, like, because it's a dark song, I do acknowledge that this isn't like the end kind of thing. Because I like acknowledge like it's not like what I want, it's what my demons want. And I feel like that's really important for like really emotional topics, because the songs where it's just like there's no redemption, it feels like it'll bring you down. And
But
like I
sometimes you want to bring people down. So that's what I'm saying, is like just being aware. So you made a creative decision that you didn't want that song to just bring people down. You made a creative decision to say that, to give that person an empowerment, essentially, to say that those voices and those ideas, or demons as you put it, aren't them. And there's, you're kind of trying to offer a way out from that, essentially. So I would say that
Yeah, I think.
your goal for that song is to have a resolve. See, that's a good storytelling thing, because you go through expressing, what they're feeling and suffering from, and then the storyline of the song is going to resolve in almost a more happier, a happier way, a more optimistic way, I guess, where you want the resolve to be good, more positive than the initial expression of the problem. And that's kind of what a story does, is a story presents the problem and then kind of, offers a solution. So it's a progression in the
Yeah, I
concept
think though
itself.
that there's also something to be said about, like you said, songs that don't have a positive outcome. I mean, there's plenty of times where I'm in a bad mood and I kind of just want to be and kind of feel that bad mood for a little bit. I kind of want to sit in it. And sometimes, you put on a couple of angry songs and then you connect with those because it's like, wow, this person is really feeling exactly what I'm feeling right now. Like they're angry,
It's
I'm
a
angry,
validation.
not
Yeah,
alone. Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
validation, because you don't want to come
Validation.
off as too preachy and being like, "Hey, you shouldn't be angry right now." It's like, that's the thing about human emotions, is even the bad ones, some people like to get into, we all do. I think that even feeling down, there can be kind of a willingness to stay in that zone. And I think that, as a person, if it was a utopia, like, we wouldn't really grow and stuff. So I think those emotions are
Oh yeah.
necessary. And yeah, sometimes you can just delve into them and mope, Like, I know some
Yeah.
good, like, really downer songs that I love.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, for this song specifically, it isn't like a redemption. There's not really a redemption. It's like you're, how I would describe it is like you're spiraling and you try to like catch yourself, or you like at least acknowledge like this isn't what I really want, but I still need to like feel it. Like I still need to like let it go instead of like just staying positive.
Accept it rather than ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think again that's like the art part of it. First and foremost, you're trying to express and understand your emotions, and however that comes out, you can only dictate it so much before you kind of lose sight of the original intention, or your emotions and interpretations move on to something else. So, I mean, you just gotta trust the process. You can't really question why you're writing what you're writing. But I think it's healthy to do that later on.
Well, I think that once you have that topic, now you can use another one of these tools and decide if you want to linger in that, or decide if you want to, contrast that topic or give it a happier resolve. And you can go the other way as well. But, the key is, once you have that central idea, kind of apply that to a story now. Do you want to just, you know, dwell on that topic and stay within that emotion, or do you want it to kind of the song to be a tool to show people a way out of that emotion, or a different perspective, where you can
like a
find
process
positive
through the
resolve.
emotion. Yes. So I also want to I want to get I know Honeybee wants to talk, so I would.
Yeah, you could kick me off now. I took a lot of time.
No,
Thank you.
that was all
You
super
brought up
helpful, and
a
we really,
whole
really
bunch of-
appreciate it.
Cool.
Absolutely, you brought up a lot of great points. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring Honeybee on up.
We're kicking no one out, though. We're safely helping Seth down off the stage,
If
back
I
into the
can.
front row.
Yes,
I
yes.
can. I did it. Wait, okay, where's Honeybee? Oh, I got your hand. Oh shit, how I do this?
Request. Bam.
Can I invite you?
Did that
I
work?
invited you.
I tried to. All right, we got it. All right.
Oh, we got it. Okay.
Hello.
I'm gonna start with being annoyingly over the top. I'm so sorry. I have a lyrical cheat sheet document that was a lot messier, but that I have fixed up in the last 10 minutes so that it would be presentable to other people.
We love it, yes.
So if you want, yeah, so I'm gonna drop it here, and I'm gonna go through the points in slightly bigger, better explanations.
Wait,
So,
I gotta open it. Okay, I'm here.
These are my lyrical cheat sheets. So there's 3 websites. I'm gonna go through them quickly. The first one is one that no one really talks about ever. RhymeZone is a common one, and the Thesaurus is a common one. This one is huge to me for some reason. So it's the Scrabble Merriam Dictionary, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary for the game Scrabble. And the reason that this is such a big tool for me is that you can look up letters. You can look up, so if it, wow, speech. When you search the dictionary, you can pick starts with, ends with, or contains. And if I put in the letter ST and I press start with, and then I enter it, it'll give me 3-letter words, 4-letter words, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a bunch of letter words that have ST at the beginning of it, which is a great tool for alliteration, or if you want to bring sounds to consistently come in
Wow.
one after the other.
That's powerful. That's awesome. I'm gonna be using that all the time. Oh my god.
So so it's just, I really like it because I really I love alliteration. So I think it's a really good way to kind of use those. RhymeZone, you guys have talked about RhymeZone a couple times. There's just a few things. Obviously, rhymes are essential. And rhymes and near rhymes are the parts of RhymeZone that everybody knows. But there are also 2 others that I really like, though I would encourage you guys to, when you go through RhymeZone, look at all of them. But there's finding related words. So if you look up, so I have it pulled up here, and I have fire, and if I find related words, not synonyms, why aren't you cooperating?
Oh, the drop down here? Oh.
Yes, except I can't find the...
Search in Shakespeare.
Yeah, so if you do descriptive words. I can't read. If you go find descriptive words and you do fire, because Seth brought it up earlier, so I thought, why not? There's things fire often describes. So there's firebox, firewood, fire ships, fireplaces, fire breathing, and then descriptive words like heavy, open, small, gun, sacred, hot, big, slow, stuff like that.
That's a great resource.
So finding descriptive words, and then there's also homophones, similar sounds, same consonants. So for example, same consonant fires. There's fair, for fur, stuff like that. So I really encourage to explore RhymeZone entirely because a lot of people only use it for the rhymes.
Yeah, same consonants sounds really interesting. You could do some kind of combining, and that's really gonna have some ear candy with it.
So those are cool with RhymeZone. My thing is explore RhymeZone and pull the resources that you need because everyone is gonna want different resources. Thesaurus, pretty basic. It's good for phrasing and avoiding unwanted repetition. I wrote words are cool and super hard. and this is coming from someone who's been writing since they were like 9, but I like writing poetry. But I find that if you go through your thesaurus and you find a word that has a different amount of syllables or a different ending or other sounds, then that can bring in like spice almost to what you're writing, so that it's not just like the same kind of basic words. I don't know if this is making any sense.
No, that's
No,
a
it
good
makes
point.
perfect sense.
So like if I look up synonyms of like life, you know, there are words like growth and heart and soul and being. You know, I would never think of writing like you give me a sense of being unless I would just write you give me a sense of life. But there's being there, and then I'm like, shoot, this is something that I could write. Yeah. Making a word bank. Word banks are my absolute favorite. They're the best part of any writing thing. You basically start with a word and then you do word association until you have like 10 to 20 words.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. It's a great tool.
People overlook this a lot, actually. So I'm glad to hear that you all do that a lot.
So wait, you start with a word and then
Yeah. So
Yeah,
give
you
me a
can
word.
use word
Like, give me a
association
word for.
to build yourself. Far.
Far, near, distance, attachment, fear, missing, longing.
Wait, my
Oh,
brain doesn't
wow.
work that fast.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Like
That was
I do.
cool.
Practice.
You have to keep in mind that I do this a lot. Like I write 2 or 3 things a day. So
No,
like
you do write extremely fast, and I've really enjoyed talking to you about that stuff. And I want to actually have you bring up something that you've talked to me about that's kind of on the same subject.
Yeah.
Go into that the
Oh,
nonsense generator.
the nonsense
I love
generator. I should put that on here. You're right. Okay.
that. So talk about that briefly, if you would, because I thought it was super cool. Like,
Okay, so the nonsense generator is the stupidest website that exists in the entire world, and I'm obsessed with
I
it.
don't want it.
So I'm gonna link it in the document. So this is the nonsense generator, and you press on it and you get it, and you press generate. So the one that came up for me just now is rock gambles, lives, happiness, and destiny itself.
wait, actually, you cut out there. Can you reread that slower?
Rock music gambles with lives, happiness, and even destiny itself.
Is that social commentary on Astroworld?
But you see how cool that is, how you could start with something this thing gives you and kind of
Generate
expand
it
on
like the memory we used to share
Yeah.
laid down on the riverbed. What
Damn.
you know? So
That's really
that's
awesome.
a really cool place to start if you feel unprompted. I know Seth talked about
Well, and
mainly
I think a fair point on that as well is that it's generating nonsense. So it kind of doesn't say anything really, right?
yeah.
Or it
I-
does. It depends on how you look at it.
Like a poem that I wrote from the nonsense generator the other day was the sentence was sex does not make any sense. That was the sentence. And at first I was like, this is a stupid sentence.
That's
But then I
pretty
wrote
profound.
I wrote a poem about how people often intermingle sex and love, and how sex is a pretty clear and obvious concept, whereas love is not. Was that what I got out of that? So it's great for like random prompts. And yeah, Seth mentioned talking about things that you like feel and you yourself go through, and I think that is super important also. But I think that sometimes as a writer, you want to kind of push those limits and go out of that box if you're comfortable, if you're confident, and if you want, obviously. And nonsense generators or like prompt generators are a great time for that. I'm gonna speed through these because I feel like I'm talking and taking. Questioning your song background. This one, this Joe, I don't know if you're still here. I hope you're still here, because this one's for you specifically.
Okay.
Are we all here? We're all here? Okay, great. So, questioning your song background, this helps the thing I learned in theater. It's basically, so write about the backstory of the person who's singing your song. Why are they singing your song? To who are they singing the song? You know, what's the message that they're trying to get across with this song? Why did they write the song? And obviously you don't have to write like 10-page essays about it like I do, but you don't have to. And you can just ask, why? Why is this something that? Why did I make this? What's the goal? What's the purpose? What am I trying to get across? So that's fun. This helps with the way that you want to interpret your words and kind of be like, hey, I wrote this message out of anger for this person. So when other people listen to my song, I want them to feel anger towards a similar person who had a similar. Structure plan, pretty straightforward. You write out what you want each verse or bridge to portray. So you'll be like, verse 1, I'm unhappy. Chorus, my life is killing me. Verse 2, I want to do something about it. Chorus, my life is killing me. Verse 3, here's the impact. Chorus, my life is killing, or bridge, sometimes things get better. Chorus, my life is killing me. This is a terrible idea. I'm so sorry. A terrible example, but you get the drill, right?
No, I think that's great because before you're writing these specific pieces, you're designing the story. You're designing that roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
So before you even get into how you're going to express it, you're really coming out with the concept of the story that you're trying to tell, and then with these little notes, you can basically start writing each portion. And you're setting a goal for each of those sections.
This is also something that a lot of people don't necessarily seem to realize about me personally. Again, sorry, I'm just bringing Seth up because you mentioned it also earlier. I'm not going to bully you because we have different methods of songwriting, but how you mentioned like writing things naturally and stuff. I sometimes I do. Sometimes things come naturally and I just vibe and write them. But I really like structuring this because it gives so much more background and power and passion to the things I write, in my opinion, personally. Types of structure, Jen mentioned them earlier. Sorry, I'm trying to grind through this because I'm just getting progressively like more annoyed by my own voice.
No, you're doing great. Honestly.
You're doing
this
great.
Is all super helpful, and we appreciate it.
The types of structure, Jen mentioned them earlier. You know how you were like problem and then like what you're gonna do about it and then solution kind of vibes.
Yeah, those vibes.
Yeah. So same thing. There's different types of structures. I will be adding more. I just any off my head. There's like A plus B equals C, which is common essay writing structure. There's who, what, when, where, why, and how. There's past, present, future. There's a bunch of different ways that you can structure these things. And I think thinking about how you want to structure them as well as then writing out your structure plan is a great way to convey a message. And then a fun extra one, well, the last two are like not like they're more like for messing around. But picking a topic and being able to reference it and calling back to it. Jen bullied me for this in lyric feedback. But no.
Because I what?
No, you're fine. But like there's I wrote a thing. Probably you've heard or read Mad Hatter, whatever. And in it, there's references of types of chemicals. They take the singer takes types of chemicals.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Whatever. And it is super vague. And that's like the rest of your criticism was obviously great, and I've been meaning to work on it. But I find that these references, I had to do research on where the expression Mad Hatter came from in the first place. It was the fact that chemicals that that hatters work with on a day-to-day basis would seep into their system and make them mad, and they would go crazy. Yeah. And this is fun
history
to mess around with by picking a research topic because it's like awkwardly niche. And like if you don't know where the expression Mad Hatter comes from, you're like, why is this dude taking shots?
Yeah, it can actually seem very random. When I first read that, I kind of didn't see the connection between those until you mentioned that.
But I think research and picking, and we mentioned earlier, like picking, calling back to like the Bible or mythology and stuff. But I think that that's also a fun, interesting way, and the nonsense generator. But the last two, I think, are like good for when you want to like push yourself and push your limits and try to see like hop out of your comfort zone. That's basically it. The last thing I just want to touch on, it's not in here, but this is something that I found out in the last couple of weeks, and it was really hard to find out. I didn't like it at all. You have to be able to let go of the fact that you will not be able to control the way everyone interprets your writing.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I think there's actually a power to doing that as well. I don't think that you want to, I said earlier, yeah, you want to consider how people are going to insert themselves into your song and participate within it with you, kind of be a part of it. But I think that not not worrying that everyone understands where you're coming from is a really cool thing to do. Like
Cause
I
like
work with a rapper actually, and sometimes he'll make references that are only intended to be understood by his culture. And he's very adamant that he doesn't want to make it to where anyone can figure that out. So there's kind of a confidence
yeah,
that
I
I think
agree.
you should have sometimes. Like I think the biggest thing is really assessing whether or not you want to take that route or whether or not you want that to relate to more people. And that goes back to being equipped to make these creative decisions yourself, which is what we're trying to give you the power to do.
Well, like, I mean, I know for like you've been with me enough time to know that I write for myself, and the fact that others listen to it is external to me. I write for myself first, and if other people enjoy it, good for them. If they don't, that's fine. Not everyone writes like that, so it's just something to keep in mind that like if you really are trying to, you can't appeal to everyone, no matter what you do. Is that the right word? Is that the right English word?
Yeah,
Appease?
yeah,
Yes.
Appeal?
both.
Okay, well you can't,
Make it
not
okay.
everyone's gonna like your shit and you gotta live with that. That's it. That's my mic drop ending fact.
It's a good one. It's a good point to end on for sure. And yeah, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to make everyone happy or direct a person's interpretation of your song perfectly because we're all different. And we all listen to different things and we all absorb information in a unique way. But I think what Flora was about to say is that's kind of the beauty of it. It's really like that's the fact that even you can go into depth and try and have it interpreted a specific way, and still someone's going to get something different out of it.
I just wanted to ask quickly, I'm so sorry. Do you mind if I like finish up this document, Jen, and then just give it to you, like put it somewhere relevant? Or wherever you'd like to put it?
Yeah, just give it to me when you're done with it. And then,
Okay.
I mean, I can post it or you can post it in guides and tutorials.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Yes,
Just because I feel like it's probably a nice little
Yeah,
handy
no,
guide
this
to
is a
have.
good,
definitely.
Okie dokie. You can kick me from the stage now.
We don't kick people from the stage, all
I
right? It's a
do.
very open and welcoming
go.
environment.
I did
No,
it.
but that stuff
We
is
will
useful.
escort you from the building. You are a
Yeah,
danger to yourself
Maki?
and others. I'm sorry, I was talking about myself.
Wait, that was so weird. You muted yourself, but I could still hear you talking.
Maybe there was a
Big brother.
lag.
But yeah,
Uh-huh.
I've actually been talking to her about a lot of the stuff that she brought up, and I've found it super helpful personally. So I really encourage y'all to look into it if you're trying to write words. But
This is inspiring me to
songwriting is
write
not
again.
just lyrics, you know. So like a lot of our members here write instrumentals and stuff, and I think that a lot of this is still translatable even if you don't have lyrics for your song.
Yeah, I think you can like do the same thing with an instrumental and categorize verses and choruses. Like say you want like a somber verse and then a rejoice in the chorus. You can still write down imagery that you want to express in
Oh yeah,
words and
I
then
think
do your best to put it in instruments.
we did an awesome short song challenge a couple weeks ago. That was it make a funny song without using any lyrics or words? And I
Yeah.
think that's a great example. Is like you can get emotion across. You can have identifiable sections and intent without the use of words, just based off the way that you structure the music in your instrumentation, the spacing and the rhythm and changes in melody. And yes.
Yeah, and I think also even if you don't play an instrument, like pretend that you are playing an instrument and think about how you would translate that emotion into the instrument. It will give you a much more humanistic approach. And it might help you like understand where like a breath mark would be, or like I don't like a high point, I guess. But if you just think about any instrument as actually playing it, I think that could help. And even singing it, I think that will give you a lot of insight about what you're trying to convey. Yes. Do we have any more questions? If not, we will start to wrap up.
Any other questions or speakers?
I think that concludes it. If you have any questions ever, you can just use music questions. You can ping me, though I do take like 5 to 10 business days. Oh, I hate myself. Yeah. But okay. Yes. Yeah, I wanna write too. So thank you all for coming. Great discussion. We will have more of these probably in the next month, and we'll revisit the poll we had and announcements and see what you guys are interested in hearing. But thank you very much. I will end.
Thank you guys.